Here's Johnny! Check it out!
A myth can be considered two things: a story that is told to explain something culturally important and relevant, or a widely held belief that is false. So a myth can be a device used to pass down useful truths or used to propagate lies. Lies that coalesce into a collective conscious of delusion that can breed rituals, superstitions, and unjustified emotions and modes of thinking such as fear, paranoia.
Did you know, Mr. Torrance, that your son is attempting to bring an outside party into this situation?
Who?
A nigger cook.
Anger,
I've let you fuck up my life so far, but I am not gonna let you fuck this up.
barbarism, derangement, and even elation. The Shining shares a myth that imparts relevant truths, something that we all could have been told around a fire from a wise ancestor if our cultures were still organized that way. A ghost story, a cautionary tale designed to frighten your child's self and keep you from a similar path. The myth of the Madman. How does someone become mad? Upbringing? Genetics? What myths about life do we as a species concoct to make sense of why we're here, why things happen? Are all of us trapped in some form of delusion, but are unable to notice because it is so common? How can you tell the difference between the illusion and the reality? Maybe it doesn't matter, if the dream is benign, but where did it come from, and why are we all dreaming the same dream? Are we being puppeted? Has someone manufactured this dream to gain something from us, our bodies, our ability to work? Or did we collectively form the dream to attain pleasure, to enter into an idyllic paradise? But if so, what was wrong with what is truly real? Was reality getting in the way of our pleasures and goals? The question of why there is evil in the world may have a simple answer. People, they dreamed a dream, a nice, pleasurable dream, rearranging their environment to fit the mold, and when something real got in the way of the dream's fruition, they put an end to it.
Now, a word from Ford.
Did I miss anything, dear?
Just the commercial.
From Channel 10 in Miami, this is Newswatch with Glenn Rinker, Ann Bishop, and the award-winning Newswatch team.
Don't worry, Mom. I know all about cannibalism. I saw it on TV.
See? It's okay. You saw it on the television.
How does one attain the idyllic life? A promotion? A spouse? A move? A change? What stands in the way of change? The other worker who wants the promotion? The other spouse? The other bidders on the house? The big other? How about the Jews and inferior races? If they were gone, then life would be paradise. Or if the Indians were gone, then the land would be attainable and life would be better. Or if my family was gone, then I could have the life that I want.
I fear you will have to deal with this matter in the harshest possible way, Mr. Torrance.
But where does one inherit the ideals that guide their desires? For Hitler, the notions for purifying the human race from inferior genetics can be dated as far back as Plato in 400 BC, who thought selective breeding should be applied to forming societies. The American settlers also saw the Native Americans as racially inferior and within the vein of manifest destiny, which placed the primacy of white American civilized culture over every other culture and race, allowed for the justification to marginalize and eradicate those who were considered savage and barbaric. For Jack, the desire to break free from his family can be found in a very popular modern ideal, the American dream. The American dream, in its simplest form, is the idea that, in America, if you work hard, you can have the life you want, a pursuit of happiness, of simple pleasures. But when pleasure is the goal, and the hard labor is without any sort of enjoyment, what would happen to the person if their work could not garner their desires? How would they react to a life spent toiling with nothing to show for it?
How do you like it?
Jack sees himself as a hard worker and his job as the caretaker of the hotel as a chance to become something, a writer, a responsible manager, his ticket up. Though his wife handles the responsibilities as a caretaker and his writing is unpublishable, Jack still views his position as full of bright potential and his family as the thing that holds him back.
It is so fucking typical of you to create a problem like this when I finally have a chance to accomplish something, when I am really into my work. I could really write my own ticket if I went back to Boulder now, couldn't I? Shoveling out driveways, working a car wash. Would that appeal to you?
This bright potential may be in a perpetual state of being ahead of Jack, instead of something that he will eventually attain. But because of his hard work, Jack, as opposed to being possessed by hopeful optimism, believes he deserves what he has strived for, as in, if it doesn't manifest, then it wasn't his fault, but something or someone got in the way. By the logic of the ideal of the American dream, hard work garners desires, but Jack doesn't have what he desires. Not a lusty love life with an attractive girl, but a wife he has no interest in, not rich, but well enough. Not an easy life, but one of hard work. Not successful, but obscure, and not respectable, but lowly, degraded and middle class. Stanley Kubrick, in preparing the script for and shooting The Shining, closely followed the research marketing agencies were doing on conveying subliminal messages in advertising. A subliminal message being something that isn't necessarily a blip on the screen, but a message and subtext conveyed through audio and visuals that is not consciously understood, but is obtained subconsciously. The theme of learning via TV is predominant throughout The Shining, and since the American dream is such an institutionalized aspect of education and growing up in the States, it is an accessible, easy area of an average American psyche to prey upon in order to sell material goods. The easy life, the attractive lover, wealth, success, privilege. Through one route or another, these ideals become part of the American dream, promises of some sort of pleasure, if and only if you work hard, climb the ladder of business, buy this product, have this personality, look like this. And if you don't, your hardships are your own fault. Of course, this narrative is not so cut and dry. There are innumerable variables that determine whether someone is wealthy or successful beyond simply working hard, such as family, connections, race, sex, education, place of birth, etc. But the myth of the idyllic American life remains, regardless of how implausible it is, or even if the ideals desired will actually bring about the pleasurable results intended. So, when people without opportunity or means cannot afford the ideals propagated, the picture-perfect pleasure dangled out in front of them, pushing them to run like a carrot on a stick, what would they do to attain these fantasies of American lore? Steal? Lie?
Anything?
No.
Cheat?
Nothing at all.
Betray? Damage? Injure? Kill?
My girls, sir, they didn't care for the Overlook at first. One of them actually stole a pack of matches and tried to burn it down. But I corrected them, sir. And when my wife tried to prevent me from doing my duty, I corrected her.
When Danny says he learned all about cannibalism through the television, this is one of our first subliminal messages. One can learn all about how to eat each other through following the propagated ideals found in our society.
You mean they ate each other up?
They had to, in order to survive.
Question: what do the ghosts want from the Torrance family? If we look at what the Overlook Hotel represents metaphorically, we can understand the ghost's intent. The hotel is a microcosm of the world, more specifically, a microcosm of America, using America as an example of the problems that are found throughout history and within humanity. Ullman, the manager of the Overlook and a pseudo Jack Kennedy-looking type, is wearing red, white, and blue when interviewing Jack for the position of the Overtaker, representing seemingly innocent American leadership. And Danny, while exploring the hotel, is wearing the colors in the form of a Flyers jacket.
Dan, did you get tired of bombing the universe?
And Wendy, when representing the comfortable American housewife, and switching to earth tones when representing the indigenous peoples repressed by America throughout its history. And Jack, when he is being sold on the insane rhetoric found in the Overlook.
Your son has a very great talent. I don't think you are aware how great it is. But he is attempting to use that very talent against your will.
He is a very willful boy.
So why does America sell the myth of the idyllic American dream? Why do advertisers and corporations and governments all want the American people to unifiedly strive towards some kind of pleasure fantasy? It's so they'll be compliant and work for whatever purposes they have in mind. The ghosts are no different. What they want is people to add to their collective. They want Jack and Wendy and Danny.
Come and play with us. Come and play with us, Danny. Forever and ever and ever.
And they manipulate Jack to accomplish this goal, the past creeping up to ensnare those in the present.
Great party, isn't it?
But what bends Jack towards murder? What do the ghosts use to ensnare him? The fulfillment of the American dream? To be respected?
But you are the caretaker. You've always been the caretaker.
To have the beautiful lover? To be able to do what you want, unimpeded? To have power over others?
Little pigs, let me come in.
But why is this what Jack wants? Where did these desires originate? It's no mystery that when we are born, we're taught about the customs, traditions, and practices of the people around us. We're told to participate in these rituals, or there will be consequences. Ostracization, failed relations, missed opportunities, a personal hell on the outside of society waiting for those who don't measure up and don't comply to the norms imposed. We give in, of course, perhaps without much coercion. We sign ourselves over to the systems in place. A series of social contracts. A social contract for each of our relationships. A set of rules to uphold certain ways of behaving and thinking between ourselves and employers, co-workers, friends, parents, and romantic partners. But how many of these contracts are truly beneficial to those that enter into them? Who benefits more? The employee or the employer? Those above or below? The husband or the wife? If born into a patriarchal system in which the man holds the power, which partner would end up better off?
And we're gonna make a new rule. Whenever I'm in here, you hear me typing. Whether you don't hear me typing, what the fuck you hear me doing in here, when I'm in here, that means that I am working. That means don't come in. How do you think you can handle that? Yeah.
What are we signing ourselves over to? A lifetime of beratement and abuse?
I did hurt him once, okay? It was an accident. The little fucker had thrown all my papers all over the floor. All I tried to do was pull him up.
Subordination and belittlement?
Dick, if you're ready to do it now, I think it'd be a good idea if you could show Mrs. Torrance the kitchen while I continue on with Jack.
Just a little problem with the old sperm bank upstairs. Nothing I can't handle, though, Lloyd.
You've had your whole fucking life to think things over. What good's a few minutes more gonna do you now?
In the pursuit of idyllic pleasures, what contracts are we willing to sign? To what or whom are we willing to give ourselves over to in order to get what we want?
Goddamn soul. Just a glass of beer. Hi, Lloyd. A little slow tonight, isn't it?
Yes, it is, Mr. Torrance.
We may desire what these entities are offering, but what they want in return is our lives, a body to work, a mind to process, a soul to appropriate in whatever way they see fit. Though, what's the cost? What becomes of us once we've entered into our agreements? What are we being absorbed into?
But you are the caretaker. You've always been the caretaker. I should know, sir. I've always been here.
And what is it twisting us into?
Has it ever occurred to you that I have agreed to look after the Overlook Hotel until May the 1st? Does it matter to you at all that the owners have placed their complete confidence and trust in me, and that I have signed a letter of agreement, a contract, in which I have accepted that responsibility?
When seduced by what offers pleasure, we enter into a contract.
Say, Lloyd, it seems I'm temporarily light. How's my credit in this joint anyway?
Your credit's fine, Mr. Torrance.
And in lieu of the absence of pleasure, outside of upholding the stipulations of the contract, it is no wonder why madness forms within us. Jack is the white man, and the Overlook is America, the white party, the white supremacy, the pure exceptionalism.
4 presidents who stayed here.
Royalty?
All the best people.
The suppression of the lessers, the slaughter of the races, the extermination of the unexceptional, the lake of blood overflowing.
White man's burden, Lloyd, my man. White man's burden.
The site is supposed to be located on an Indian burial ground, and I believe they actually had to repel a few Indian attacks as they were building it.
The American ideal, the land of opportunity, wealth, freedom, where the white man reigns. The land founded on the slaughter of natives, on the backs of slaves, the blood overflowing. We're not taught about these unfortunate portions of history, though. We're educated about a fairy tale. Righteous white settlers came, set up colonies, cooperated with the natives, and fought for freedom. And slavery may have occurred for a bit, but we did away with it. It's in the past. No need to think about it.
Remember what Mr. Halloran said? It's just like pictures in a book, Danny. It isn't real.
And there may have been institutionalized racism, but we fixed that too. We're still the righteous settlers who came in on boats. Focus on our accomplishments. We passed the Civil Rights Act, achieved equal rights for women.
We went to the moon.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Focus on the accomplishments
and forget the past. Forget what happened.
It's just like pictures in a book, Danny.
Forget the problems.
It isn't real.
Don't we live in an exceptional country? Isn't it wonderful?
This is probably the most gorgeous hotel I've ever seen.
No need to dwell on the past.
Everything is all right.
We're all gonna have a real good time.
If we focus on the presented surface of our waking reality, we may miss the evil that is lurking underneath. The Shining, through Jack, portrays the downward spiral of someone who lives for idyllic pleasures and has no other compass by which to navigate, leading people inexorably to the point where the axe is applied to anything that gets in their way. The route of madness, lost in the maze, unable to escape.
This is our famous hedge maze. It's quite an attraction around here. The walls are 13 feet high, and the hedge is about as old as the hotel itself. It's a lot of fun, but I wouldn't want to go in there unless I had an hour to spare to find my way out.
In wide shots of the Overlook, there is clearly no maze. Why would Kubrick be so careless? But he wasn't, really. He intensively researched and executed each one of his films. So why is there no maze? Maybe because he understood that we, the audience, wouldn't catch it. Another subliminal message. The maze isn't real. As a matter of fact, the hotel itself is full of logical contradictions. An impossible window, an impossible door, changing hallways. All of these elements work on our subconscious, telling us, even if our conscious minds do not perceive, that the hotel is unnatural and something illusory is going on there. A cardboard, ghostly world. The unreal past. Wasn't it Charles Grady who killed his wife and kids?
Charles Grady is the winter caretaker.
What do they call you around here, Jeevesy?
Grady, sir. Delbert Grady.
And weren't his daughters about 8 and 10?
He came up here with his wife and 2 little girls, I think about 8 and 10.
Hello, Daddy.
So the ghostly realm isn't necessarily the past. It is a visage of the past, invented as a ruse to lure the Torrances into their dead realm. The Shining can be seen as a contrasting examination, not only in the path of madness, that is, pursuing idyllic pleasures at any cost, which are, overall, an illusion, but the path that, from knowing the objective truth, leads out of the maze and the consequences therein, the path that Danny takes. People from the past manifest evil as well as good from what they did, which resonates into our present, and for those who can shine, they behold those manifestations, these ghosts.
It's just that, you know, some places are like people. Some shine and some don't. I guess you could say the Overlook Hotel here has something about it that's like shining.
While Jack is easily swayed by the evil residual left by what occurred in the Overlook with insinuations of power, pleasure, and prestige, Danny is not so easy to obtain. He has help in knowing that the ghosts in the hotel have set a malicious trap through Tony. When Danny asks about what is in the hotel, Tony shows him. And when Danny is attacked by the woman in room 237, it's Tony that takes control of his body.
Danny's not here, Mrs. Torrance.
And writes out a warning to Wendy. Tony warns of evil to come, so as to have Danny and his mother avoid it. But for Jack, there is no warning, and his own appetites are what end up ensnaring him. Following a past course, the evil like a hook in the mouth, you the helpless fish, the line of history pulling you back, but reeled in by what?
I like you, Lloyd. I always liked you. You were always the best of them. Best goddamn bartender from Timbuktu to Portland, Maine. Or Portland, Oregon, for that matter.
Thank you for saying so.
Lloyd is the first entity that appears to Jack when he offers up his soul for a drink.
What'll it be?
A very close parallel can be found in Faust, when a demon appears to offer Faust pleasure in exchange for his soul. And the line about being the best bartender alludes to this particular demon providing some kind of exemplary service.
You set him up and I'll knock him back, Lloyd. One by one. White man's burden, Lloyd, my man. White man's burden.
If the devil tempts us to sin, it is still our predilections that drive us in that direction. The oppression of the weak, the murder of the defenseless, the opportunity to engorge, the chance for the idyllic life, no matter the cost, the chance to have it all, the opportunity for greater pleasures to come.
Whatever the explanation is, I think we have to get Danny out of here.
You mean just leave the hotel?
If the hotel preys on the weakness of those it wants to absorb, then how does one escape? Be without weakness? Be aware of the trap and avoid it? But how are we aware of the tricks when we are simultaneously being seduced? A shiny veneer, with pleasures and promises of future pleasures. We have to have help, I suppose, in order to see beyond the surface.
Has Tony ever told you anything about this place? About the Overlook Hotel?
Is there something bad here?
You know, Doc, when something happens, it can leave a trace of itself behind. Say, like, if someone burns toast, well, maybe things that happen leave other kind of traces behind. Not things that anyone can notice, but things that people who shine can see.
The traces of the past, the accomplishments, the mistakes, the bliss, the troubles, the good, the evil, creating paths for us to follow, mental arenas that were tread by those who came before, where they got lost, where they were seduced into convoluted forms of thought, where they lost their minds, surrounded by the dead, who shouldn't have a say over our lives, but still keep us rooted in the illusion of their reality. The truth is, we all have a type of shine to us. Everything in our minds has an origin. What we learned and continue to learn makes up the constitution of our thoughts. Who we are stems back to our parents, and our parents' parents, and their parents. Dead ancestors still speaking, still having a say over our lives, and the lives of those who follow after us. If we only look at our present, at what has been constructed for us, the country, culture, and reality built by those who came before, we may be sucked into a world where, if we simply give in to its fictitious design, every evil for the purposes of pleasure is permissible, and like Jack, we can truly inherit the madness of our ancestors. Then there's Danny. He perceives the evil, experiences the evil, and ultimately avoids the evil through Tony. But what is Tony?
Tony is a little boy that loves my mom.
A benevolent entity?
Is Tony the one that tells you things?
A route to objective truth? Something supernatural that meets us in the midst of our trauma and allows us to circumnavigate the evil desires of those around us? If we end up lost in the maze made by our predecessors, we must be able to find a way out and somehow retrace the way we entered, to relieve ourselves of the illusion, to find a way out of the land of the dead.